Welcome to Conversations of Hope with Liberty Forrest. Everyone has a story, and everyone faces challenges and traumatic events. Maybe right now that's your story. Maybe you're just trying to get through one day at a time, or even 1 minute at a time. In this uplifting series, Liberty's guests share some of the most difficult obstacles they've overcome, offering hope and encouragement to those who are in the midst of slaying their own dragons. Enjoy these inspiring stories of triumph over tragedy, of thriving beyond surviving, and bring the new light of hope into your life. And now, here's Liberty.
Well, hello, and welcome to Conversations of Hope. Boy, are we in for a treat today. My guests are the beautiful Tamara Green and her beloved husband, David Dachinger. David is a featured author and Grammy-nominated composer who has scored inspiring music for America's most celebrated sporting events and television shows. Over 1 billion people have heard his music on CBS broadcasts of the Super Bowl, the Masters, and the NFL. David is a survivor of head, neck, and lymphatic stage 4 cancer. Tamara is an author, speaker, and trainer, dubbed by Elle magazine as, I love this, the soul-centered psychotherapist and meditation facilitator. How cool is that? Tamara combines her many years of professional training and life experience, such as caregiving, to create powerfully effective guided meditations that have helped thousands to achieve peace, love, and well-being. Together, this married couple creates highly effective multimedia programs that help cancer patients and caregivers to dramatically reduce stress, anxiety, pain, and discomfort throughout their cancer journey. And you can check out their Loving Meditations app and website at lovingmeditations.com. Welcome, you two. I'm so excited to have you here today. How beautiful of you to spend a little time and share your beautiful story.
Well, we're very excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely.
I am too. Well, it's really your story, so I don't like to lead with questions. I'd like you to just kind of dive in where you think it's best to start.
I've always been a fan of what I would call epic survival adventures. Throughout the ages, there's been quite a few of them where man has been put in a situation of extreme survival because they've been shipwrecked or trying to cross the continent of Antarctica, and situations and circumstances come up that make it basically a life or death situation. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been fascinated by the resiliency and the resourcefulness, and especially who do these people become in this moment of challenge in order to get through it? And the people around them, who are they in that moment, and how are the leaders of these expeditions or groups, how are they, what is their outlook that's enabling them to inspire everyone who's basically fighting for their life to get through this and hopefully get through it successfully? Well, so I was a fan of that, and then I got to live it. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer almost exactly 4 years ago. And although it started as a shock and just an overwhelming, crazy, like this couldn't happen to me, I'm the poster child for good health and working out and good nutrition. It just seemed like a big mistake, in my life plan. And then I realized this is also an opportunity to look at this like an extreme epic survival adventure. What is it going to be like for me and my body to go through this insane, intense treatment? And how's it going to look during and after? And that's sort of how I approached it after the shock and the intensity of the diagnosis wore off. That's how I viewed it throughout the journey, and then even afterwards. So that's kind of like a overview of it.
I can't even imagine. Well, I can imagine part of that because I had, like you, I was the poster child for good health, good healthy living, exercising, lots, eating a very healthy diet, didn't smoke, didn't drink, all that stuff, was underweight, and started having heart attacks in my 30s. Like, what? So I get that sense of shock, and I felt betrayed by my body. Did you sort of feel that way as well?
Yeah, it was definitely a sense of disappointment, because it had always kind of shown up and always overcome whatever obstacles I had encountered up to that point. And this is a pretty major obstacle.
Yeah.
It's a lethal invasive disease, and it's like, it's a wake up call. It's like, okay, what is my body trying to tell me? Like, am I, did I do something? Was something, you kind of go through a mental Rolodex of what could have caused this, what are the environmental agents or other possible causes that brought me to this place. So there's a whole exploration that goes on at that moment and then throughout, and it continues even to this day.
I'll bet. And for you to get to that point of, going from the shock, like you said, that sort of settled, and then you thought about the resiliency and this epic journey and the adventure of that. What kind of happened in between? Is that where the hope kind of happened for you, or was it more like you had to be kind of in the journey before you could get to a sense of hope, or where does that fit?
It's a mixture of all of the above, and some of it is clearly having people around you that are supporting you, and also very much kind of observing how you're doing during this experience. But Tamara was huge. Her caregiving, her love, and her embodiment of being love during that time was monumental in terms of my outcome, how I was able to kind of endure what the treatment was, and to feel like I had a safety net, that no matter what happened, it was all going to be okay. And to have that positive, we would shift into a positive outlook whenever we started getting negative. And it's really easy to get negative when you're hearing about cancer and you're around a lot of people that are dealing with cancer, getting treated for cancer. Your friends, the word has a lot of charge to it. When people, friends, family hear that word, they still have this association with death and the finality of it. So you kind of have to realize that there's a lot of drama, a lot of energy, a lot of negative connotations. It's really important to keep shifting the focus back into the positive whenever possible.
Absolutely, you're right. That word, anybody hears that word, and the first thing they think is, it's fear and death. And then they want to tell you the horror stories. Did you find that people did that, or were they more supportive? They want to launch into.
It's interesting, right? And Tamara's going to talk at some point.
Yeah, that's okay.
But it's they want to tell you, war stories, and then of course everybody wants to help you. So they all have their little way that they're going to, their suggestion or their gift or their contribution, and not always helpful, not always something you really can use or desire. But interesting things show up at the front door when when people know that you're ill and they want to do something to help out.
I can only imagine. And Tamara, you I can't imagine how that was for you to hear this, this man that you love and adore, and you get that diagnosis. How did that affect you?
I love this conversation about hope, actually. So 4 days before David was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, our son was having these really weird symptoms, anything from headaches to stiff neck and joints to a rash all over his body. And 4 days prior, he was diagnosed with Lyme disease.
Oh,
yeah.
My word. You need that like a hole in the head.
Right, exactly. So I was really kind of freaking out in my own bit. In my own silent way. I'm not one of those super anxious people, but inside of my head, I was not living in hope at all. I was kind of going to the worst case scenario, which is what many of us do when we get shocked with these kinds of big events in our life, right? Mm-hmm. But it was about I can't remember exactly, a week and a half, 2 weeks after David's diagnosis, that I realized what I was doing, that I let my meditation practice, my yoga practice, my practice of gratitude just go to the wayside. And then I realized, I have to now more than, ever, I must get back to my practice. And that's where the hope came back. That's where it really, or started, after the diagnosis, that's where it really started for me. Because it really is a sense of calm, and regardless of the outcome, you know what, all is well. It's just all is well. It's okay. And so David was so supportive of me making, my meditation and yoga practice a priority, even though, there was a lot to take care of, obviously,
Right.
And I was there almost every day at the infusion center when David was getting radiation and chemo, and then later surgery. But
and then you got your son sick as well.
Right. And there's lots of doctor's appointments, and, there's all kinds of issues when you're taking antibiotics for my son anyway, stomach upset and stuff like that. But the thing is that that practice, I think, really it helped me become the rock and the sense of hope for, my guys. Our daughter was away at college, so it was just me and my boys. And it was the rock for me. And I think, I guess you would say it was the rock for them as well.
That's wonderful. I know I've found in my own life that it's so easy to slide away from that practice when things are going well and you just get busy and, oh yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a hole again and you don't quite know how you got there.
Exactly.
And it can feel like a chore to get back into it. But it's like this chicken and egg thing, right? But when you get into it, when you make yourself do it again, it's like going home. And that's the thing that sort of saves you, but it feels like an effort to do it. But when you do it, that's the thing that makes you feel better. It's when we don't do it that we need to do it the most, usually.
Exactly. And, I also want to say one other thing here, that if you're, listening to this but I don't have a practice, I've never meditated, or I really don't do yoga, it doesn't matter. Oftentimes when you're faced with a major life challenge like we were, that is the time to start, even if it's just 1 minute a day. Just start something. It's unfortunately, us human beings usually need a crisis or some kind of large amount of pain to get motivated.
That's right. It's so sad, but so true.
So go ahead and use this as an opportunity to, get started with something.
All right. Even the staring at a candle flame, that's one of my favorites to tell people to start with. Just a minute or 2 minutes in the morning, just get up, nice dark place, and just stare into a candle flame for a couple of minutes or whatever, just to have stillness in your mind. So how did you end up then? I mean, you've had quite a journey to go through all of that with the healing process, and you've created a whole amazing, well, it's a gift to the world, really, isn't it? What you've done with meditation and incorporating your practice into this healing. And now you're offering this to people who are struggling either with cancer or taking care of people who have cancer. And I mean, others as well, but can you tell me about that? I'm fascinated.
Sure. It's our mission to pay it forward. We had a sort of a project we were working on prior to all this, where we were creating meditations for a YouTube channel. And so we were in the midst of making guided meditations. And then we walked in the shoes of the caregiver and the patient through the cancer journey. And so now we had a firsthand knowledge of what the pain points are and what the difficulties are. And it's not really just confined to cancer. That's our focus, but this really could apply to other major illness. This could apply to other life challenges like losing a job or relationship problems, a number of things. So we started to take what we knew were the challenges and obstacles in being a cancer patient or a survivor or a caregiver, and creating, we call them meditations, but they're really guided meditations or mindful tools that simply require taking your personal device, whether it's a phone or a tablet or a computer, and putting on earbuds or headphones and pressing play, and then we take you on a journey. It could be for sleep, it could be for nausea, it could be for increasing your calm and reducing stress. So we're continually in a creative mode to come up with new guided meditations and programs that will assist people in their journey, whatever the challenge is.
That is so beautiful. And the mind is such an amazing thing. And I mean, when I was doing, excuse me, my own self-healing project with my heart problem, one of the things I remembered was hearing years ago that people with with multiple personality disorder, which I think they call dissociative identity disorder now, have had personalities with diabetes, insulin dependent. And when that personality is in control, they have to have the insulin and do all of that. But when the other personalities are in control, they can have all the sugar they want, and there's no symptoms of diabetes. And I started investigating this and discovered there are numerous documented cases all over the world of people with this disorder who have different personalities with completely different health profiles. They can be anaphylactic with nuts, and then another one can eat all the nuts at once, and there's no problem. Or, I mean, that's cool enough, but I even discovered that there are some cases where they've had burns or scars or tumors that come and go depending on which personality is in control. Doesn't that just blow your doors off? I mean,
yes.
And that's all because of the power of the mind. So, you know, they're just as separate as the two of you and I are in their minds. So if a personality is in control and did not experience the burn or the injury that another personality had, that person's in control. And, you know, if there's something on the arm, they look down, well, that's gone because that person didn't have that injury. Did that make sense? I know what I meant.
Yeah. We get it.
So it's an astonishing thing. And that's entirely about belief, which is, you know, of course, the power of the mind. So what you're doing in these meditations that you're creating for people is you're giving them easy access to this extremely powerful tool that everyone has. It's the power of the mind. It's the power of the thought.
Right. And there's not a cookie cutter approach to this for everyone, right? So that's why we like to put video, because some people are very visual and they want to activate that part of their brain to get calm. Or you could close your eyes and just listen to the audio with David's incredible music. And some of them are guided and others are not. And then some, you know, because I'm also a hypnotherapist, it's, you know, it's breath work. And then some is, you know, takes you into a very deep, you know, it goes on a deep journey sort of thing. So it's really fun creating a real variety of different ways to calm yourself, different ways to be mindful. And it could be quick, or we have some longer ones like 23, 24 minutes. So it's really fun exploring all of this.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's another thing you raise, hypnosis. And I've seen some amazing things with that too, because I'm also a hypnotist. It's just bizarre what the mind will do. So now you're launching a pretty cool project next week. Yes.
Yes. You want to talk about it?
We couldn't just stop. It wasn't enough to have an app.
We're not overachievers. No.
We wanted to create more piles of stuff to do on our to-do list. So we wrote a book, and so we are getting ready to launch it on this coming November 30th, 2017. And it's called Live Calm with Cancer and Beyond. And it is kind of a multifaceted book, but we write it from the perspective of the patient and the caregiver. So in most of the chapters, there's my part, which is the patient perspective, and Tamara's part, which is the caregiver perspective. And we also
That's very cool.
Sprinkle in mindful tools and meditations from the app. And
Wow.
And so we, our target audience again is primarily cancer community, but there's a lot of stuff in there that really we think would be useful and beneficial to people who are dealing with challenges or who just want to either jumpstart their prior mindfulness practice or get into it for the first time.
Sure. That sounds wonderful. I'm excited to see it. I can't wait. Would it be okay to dive, maybe if you have the interest, into maybe some of the difficult spots? Like did you have like your lowest moments? If you could just take a little time to maybe talk about how you got out of the really tough spots. I mean, it's sounds like, right from the beginning, well, yes, epic journey, and I'm going to fix this sort of a thing, but there had to have been some really low spots, I would have thought.
Absolutely. You question your mortality at different points along the way. And I was personally receiving a lot of intense medical treatment that made me feel terrible. And in addition to feeling terrible physically, other things that are normal that you take for granted were impossible: sleeping, eating, swallowing. And so there's sometimes I think, I want my life back, because everything I've come to appreciate is gone. I can't work. I can't work out. I can't even enjoy food, can't sleep, can't go to the bathroom. And then you have to that's when I started to turn to the gratitude exercises that we talk about in the book. But Tamara was, she's always great about bringing the positive back in. So we would go for a gratitude walk and trade off statements like, I'm grateful that we have wonderful kids. And then Tamara would say something like,
I'm so glad that you're choosing to live and not die in this process.
And so once we did that for 10, 15 minutes, really shift out of this, like, I'm a victim, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. I want my life back and I don't have it. I got to endure this months of treatment to possibly be back to somewhat normal, to the new normal, whatever the new normal is. So that was one example of, how it kind of hitting bottom and then shifting out of it.
And it really does. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's amazing how bad you can feel, how bad the situation is, that you can actually each and every single time find something to be grateful for. It's amazing. Saying that, making sure that, people know out there that you're not just supposed to go from feeling absolutely miserable to grateful in a split second, and there's something wrong with you if you can't do it. So right. In that case, you want to actually go ahead and express what's going on. I am miserable. I am so angry. I'm so upset. I'm scared. I'm terrified. Go ahead, start labeling how you feel and start to get it out. Talk about it or write about it or however you need to do it. Then go ahead and start writing down what you're grateful for or expressing to somebody else. Hey, can we just do this thing for 5 minutes? I'll say what I'm grateful for. You say what you're grateful for, and we'll go back and forth until we feel lighter and lighter.
Right. Do you watch Friends?
Not really.
No.
Well, our kids do.
There was an episode. I'll just throw this out there. It's just it's better if you know the character. But there's Monica, who's this control freak, and she's super organized everywhere in her life. And then they discovered she had this one closet that was locked, but her boyfriend broke into it. And it was just packed and messy with just stuff, just clutter, just thrown in there any which way. And what you were saying just kind of reminded me. I just got this picture of Monica's closet in my head, where when you were saying about having to empty out the frustration and all of that, you got to empty out the closet before you can put in the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and they do say in feng shui, they say that the closet represents the subconscious mind.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Wow. I think it's especially wonderful that you had each other, going through this. And I mean, there are people who don't have a partner, and it's got to be extra tough for people in that situation. Would there be anything that you could offer by way of words of wisdom or insight? I mean, obviously your book and your apps are going to help, but for other, just that kind of day-to-day thing where you don't have someone to go with you on that walk, is there anything you could say that might be helpful to people who are maybe alone and don't have the kind of support system that you had?
Mm-hmm. What we found is that there are a tremendous amount of support out there for most people going through some kind of challenge, or definitely a medical challenge, and go ahead and reach out and get that support. David talks about this, and maybe you want to talk about it again, but really being very open to receiving support, because that's not the easiest thing for people to do.
No, it's not. Or even asking for it is even harder. Yeah.
Right. So go ahead and do that. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you're going through what you're going through, because it really is about you asking for support and receiving it. Because so many of us, we're just givers. We give, and it really throws you out of balance and harmony. You need to receive 50% and give 50%, and maybe that's part of what this is about. But
it's, in addition to the patients, there's the caregivers too, who may just be so focused on taking care of their loved one that they're not receiving anything they may not have relatives and friends that are available. And they're really at risk of compassion fatigue and caregiver, like a burnout situation. And that's, we talk about this in the book and cover it in the app as well, that it's really important that they recharge and have some means to get, emotionally and spiritually fed while they're giving so much to this loved one. So it's really important. And just on a totally practical note, we've gotten involved with the American Cancer Society, and for cancer patients specifically, there are a ton of resources on their website and within their organization to help in tons of different ways. So that's the place we recommend looking if you're in need of help as a cancer patient. They do stuff.
Caregiver.
Yeah, they do stuff like they will house people near hospitals, so that if they live a distance away, and actually schedule the transportation. They've got that's really incredible. Impressive resources.
Wow,
yeah, or they'll drive you to and from your doctor's appointments or infusion or radiology or appointments.
That's amazing.
They just they kind of step up in a lot of unique ways that you wouldn't normally think. So they're fantastic resource.
Wow, that's incredible. That's good news.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any sort of final words or thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, just kind of reiterate that this terrible event, that whatever it is in our lives, you can view it in a lot of different ways, and it's not saying it's good or bad to say that it's a terrible thing, but it's also a defining moment. And when we start to approach it like a defining moment, and sometimes the only direction to go is up because we've hit bottom, that's when really miraculous things can happen. And if we're open to that, if we're open to the possibilities, if we're open to asking questions and trying to find the gift in it and what's right about the situation that I'm not getting, you have now taken that horrible bottoming out as a time to reinvent, and who knows, it could lead you on a whole new journey that's something you never imagined, how wonderful it possibly could have been. So that's my 2 cents.
Wow, those are very powerful words and very true. Any final thoughts from you, Tamara?
what if this is your opportunity, whatever the challenge may be, is the opportunity for self-discovery and maybe even self-love? What if that is the reason why you're going through this? So that's certainly what my experience was. I just didn't even know the depth of my own self until I just really put myself 1,000% into every day of being a caregiver and being of service and being loving, not only to my guys, but to myself as well.
Yeah, massively important, because if you disappear, then what?
Right, exactly.
Well, where can people find you?
Our general website is lovingmeditations.com, and our app is easily available on calmcancerstress.com. That's CALM, cancerstress.com. And the book is easily available on livecalmwithcancer.com.
I love the title of your book, by the way. It's brilliant. Really beautiful.
Thanks.
Well, I thank you so much for having having come and shared your story. And I know that it's going to touch a lot of lives and bring a lot of hope to many people. So thank you very much from, well, as Robert Clancy would say, I was going to say from the bottom of my heart, but no, with all of my heart. You probably know that that's a Robert thing, right?
That sounds like something Robert would say. That's nice.
I thank you very much.
Thank you, Liberty.
It was great talking to you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Conversations of Hope with Liberty Forrest. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the newest editions. If you'd like to contact Liberty, you can write her at info@yourstoryofhope.com. And remember, when you choose hope, you can get through anything.